As a part of the necessary, albeit temporary, requirement for more uploads on my channel, I'm having to do a few reviews and comment reading videos lately. It's only for a little while. I'm still posting just as many theories every Friday. I just need to upload more days so YouTube's petty algorithm feels satisfied. Today's review is one that I'm sure a hefty sub-chunk of my fanbase has been asking for: Once Upon a Time. I have so many Once Upon a Time theories coming down the pipeline, but right now, I'd like to continually perfect my rating system to see how good it is at identifying my enjoyment of Once Upon a Time. Keep in mind, however, this system ranks the creativity, quality, story, characters, and the plot thickening of each season based on how it feels in the context of the others, and how well it fits my personal desire for complex plots, with 10 simply being something that fits the criteria for everything I could possibly enjoy from it, and the maximum of its potential it can fill. Most of the stuff is above 8 out of 10, so think of 8 as passable, 9 as good, and 10 as great. Instead of focusing on the numbers themselves, focus on them in the relation to each other. This is good for ranking which seasons are best. I'm not here for the shipping, emotions, or any of that. This is ranking the plot complexity and how well the sci-fi fantasy twists dropped my jaw. So here we go. Each season, definite spoilers for everything. Let's do this. Season 1 is considered by many to be one of the best seasons. It's the introduction to such a great new show. It shows off how the whole flashback dynamic works. It's unique enough as a concept, but Season 1 is extremely self-contained. It explains the bare bones of each character backstory and does so greatly, building up to an amazing finale, but it's not what Once Upon a Time truly is. Season 1 shines for its base development of characters, its base development of backstory, and Once's trademark confusing plot. Creatively, it's one of the most creative seasons, having started this whole show. 9.5 for that. The quality was inherently less amazing for the simple fact that it was several years ago, and that the show focused so much on the real-life nature of Storybrooke, and it didn't need its wicked sci-fi fantasy yet. The quality is still a great 8.5 though. Story, no matter how ridiculous it becomes, is still thorough. It's very thorough, and while they did have a few plot holes I'm still trying to explain away, they kept up beautifully for the most part, especially back here. They've got a 9.5. Characters, again, were very well developed, but still developing, and were probably a 9 at that time being, which is phenomenal in itself. Finally, the theorizable twists and turns were a 9.5 all the way, as it was showing the plot thickness we'd be in for down the line. Averaging these, we're left with Once Upon a Time's first season being 9.2 out of 10, aka 92%, aka an A-. And again, 100% would simply be complete requirements met from my sci-fi fantasy enjoyabilities. On to Season 2. Season 2 is sort of a forgotten season, I think. It was the start of the true Once Upon a Time, a transitional season. Regina slowly faced her demons, everyone recuperated from a 30-year hypnosis, and the highlights for me were Cora and Rumpel's son. Cora had such a backstory. Wow, I was thrilled to learn that she orchestrated Regina's whole life after killing Snow's mom. It was perfect writing. Her death was poetic as and she was a creepy, soulless misanthrope. Rumpel's son, the twist, oh, the twist, it was genius. I loved it so much, and that whole episode with the prophesized ending, it's just too much. I love it. Twisty turns all over. The creativity is half a point less than Season 1. It all had the same stuff and more, but Season 1 introduced this show's concepts, and Season 2's creativity didn't do enough to exactly equalize it. 9 out of 10, of course. The one thing that did improve by half a point, though, was the quality, as way more magic and VFX and music went into this season, as well as a whole year passing in the technological television industry. 9 out of 10 on quality. The plot took its trademark of really ramping up this season, and while the whole Greg and Tamara mini arc was highly forgettable, Cora was not. Rumpel and his son were not. Most of the plot ratings from this point forward will be a 10, by the way, and so, for complex writing that managed to flesh out a huge universe, Season 2 gets what it deserves. The characters were in a transition here, but were beginning to get more detailed than Season 1, leaving 9.5 out of 10 as the rating. Finally, twistedness was just as potent this season as the prior one, and while it increases as the show introduces more and more, for now, 9.5 out of 10 still fits. That's a Season 2 rating of 9.4 out of 10, aka 94% fitting my standards, aka another A-. On to Season 3, my and many others' favorite season of the bunch. Season 3 encapsulates what Once Upon a Time is, and does so in spades. The first half of this season takes everyone to a completely new land other than Storybrooke, and they meet the most psychopathic villain in the whole show, Peter Pan, Rumpelstiltskin's dad. That twist alone was a genius construction, but then the mid-season finale is one of the best episodes of all time. So much happening fast, and what? Storybrooke is gone? Then later, the show introduces one of my favorite characters, Zelena, and gives her a detrimental plan that will undo everyone's existence. She was great in Season 3, and these two arcs lead me to giving Season 3 back that 9.5 out of 10 on creativity. Additionally, a newfound 9.5 out of 10 on the quality, due to the amount of new worlds traveled and the even better music and the annual technological upgrades. Story finally hits that 10 here, having hit its zenith at the mid-season finale for the first, what I'll call, mega arc. And characters too hit their zenith of intrigue, emotion, fun, and sheer depth. Another 10 for them, and the theorizability is that same old 9.5 out of 10 rating, because the show was still just as twisted as before, but it needs to take that ridiculous plot-confusing leaps to hit the maximum theorizability. Season 3 gets that shiny 9.7 out of 10 from me, which is equivalent to 97% enjoyable, aka an A ranking. On to Season 4. Many stopped watching here. Perhaps they saw the Frozen arc as pointless, but with time, the show did wonders with the Frozen arc, particularly with the Snow Queen introduction, another one of the most intriguing characters. This season sacrificed half a point of story to gain half a point of sci-fi confusing plot twist madness, a change which made me sort of happy. The mid-season finale and season finale were epic. The Frozen arc, or rather Ingrid's whole story, her travels, her interrelations with Emma's past, was also twisty. And in the second half, while they did have a game of villain roulette, going from Ursula to Maleficent to Cruella to Rumple to Zelena to Isaac to the darkness, it was nonetheless wondrous to watch, as always. The particular things I enjoyed about the second half of the season were all as it ramped up near the end. Cruella's backstory, Zelena's surprise, absolutely jaw-dropping resurrection, and then, oh, that finale might be one of my favorites ever. So much happened. The show tried to be as creative as Season 3, but it felt like the same level of journey and travel, so 9 out of 10 for that. The quality was generally maintained at its 9.5 out of 10 though, and as I said, the plot dropped to a 9.5 out of 10 so that the twistedness could finally rise up to that 10 out of 10, which leaves characters now more than developed. It'll be hard for them to ever lose that 10 out of 10 they now have. This all leaves Season 4 with a 9.6 out of 10 rating, which means I found it decent 96% of the time, and it gets ranked with another A rating. On to the controversial Season 5. Many say this is the worst. Why? Could it be the hook plot in the middle? Could it be the weird pacing on the underworld plot? Them teasing an evil Emma that never happened? Well, there's a reason I'm separating the individual episode ratings from the season as a whole. The episodes were odd at times, but overall, the seasonal concepts were generally fine. In my episode ratings, you'll see it drops and rises all over the place here, but overall, the Dark Swan arc was still quite interestingly deep, and the Underworld arc climaxed with a brilliant end to the second mega arc in the show, the one that started with Zelena and her time travel, and all ended up resulting in Frozen kicking out Rumple, who brought the darkness back, which then put into Emma and Hook, which sent them to the Underworld, and then they undid it, but then Rumple needs to save Belle, which breaks the wand's portal connection to the other worlds and starts the next mega arc, spanning only one season, Season 6. Season 5, overall, is like Season 4 when it comes to creativity. It's, again, a similar 2-volume formula to Season 3, a remaining 9 out of 10 rating. The quality is still the same 9.5 out of 10 rating as well, but the plot dragged and made odd choices this season, dropping it to a 9 out of 10, which is a low we've yet to see with a season of this show. Characters, though, are still at same old 10 out of 10 here, as well as really cranking that theorizability twistedness past 10 out of 10 if it were possible. This all ranks it in at around 9.5 out of 10, which, as you can see, is still good, just not as good as the sci-fi madness we'd come to expect from the better seasons 3 and 4. Season 6 incoming. This season started and finished the final mega arc and complete arc of the main story of Once Upon a Time. After this, there's only the epilogue season and the bonus season. Season 6 had so many villains in and out, and while it broke the 2-volume structure in favor of like 4 volumes, its creativity wasn't as widespread as the previous 2 seasons. It was mostly in Storybrooke, and that drops it to an 8.5 out of 10 rating in the creativity department. The quality is still the same, 9.5 out of 10 though. The plot was quite wonderful overall, and I actually had to go back and re-rank it, as it's underappreciated, I feel. People love all over the first 3 seasons and hate all over 4 and 5, but 6 is sort of just good. I agree. It went from the Mr. Hyde plot to the Evil Queen plot to the Gideon plot to the Black Fairy plot. It was all over the map, and I found it very enjoyable, actually. The Black Fairy is one of my favorite characters in the whole show, and so, upon a double take, this season's plot reinstates the 9.5 out of 10 rating found in Season 4. Characters, again, are still their great old selves at 10 out of 10 points. And finally, the twists. This season had a few, but some felt needless, and there were less of them. The good ones were great, though, so I'm just bringing this one back down to Once Upon a Time's usual score, 9.5 out of 10 on theorizability. This means Season 6 is a 9.4 out of 10 rating, which means I enjoyed it 94% of the time, and I give it an A-. Time for the highly, highly weird Season 7. This season is an epilogue. It feels way too disconnected from the main story, but it also gets a lot of hate. High points? Gothel is absolutely great, and I love her backstory. The middle of this season and the end of the season were typical, phenomenal Once Upon a Time, but everything else, whether it was dragging, lagging, losing itself in the bizarre new plot, whatever, it was weird. I'll give it back its 9 out of 10 for creativity, but unfortunately, the quality overall drops down from 9.5 to 8 out of 10 points because most of it took place in Seattle. Not even in a mysteriously magical little quaint Maine town, but in Seattle in a bar. Not the best usage of CGI and music and other thematic stuff. Story is an 8.5 out of 10 rating, which isn't too low, it's just slightly worse than all the other seasons. Where this season truly suffers, though, is characters because it lost so many of the ones everybody loved from previous seasons. And the ones it kept, it completely changed. It replaced old ones with new versions, changed actors, and created duplicates, and finally, erased everyone's memories. The characters aren't explicitly bad, they just aren't as detailed and once upon a timey as we're used to, so 7.5 out of 10 here. Finally, the theorizability. It drops from the typical 9.5 out of 10 points down to 8.5 out of 10 points because there wasn't much here that couldn't be predicted. I mean, the end was unpredictable, but there was also no hints it would ever happen. It's like they went for an All-Stars episode in a realistic universe. This leaves Season 7 at the lowest season of all, 8.3 out of 10 points. I enjoyed it 83% of the time, and that's a B rating. Finally, on to the spin-off season, Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. This mini-show was pretty cool, I must say. The creativity was probably around an 8.5 out of 10 rating because while it was quite unique, it still did leech off of Once Upon a Time's signature writing. The quality is bizarre because of the amount of VFX needed in Wonderland. It looks very fake, and I'm going to give it Season 7's rating of 8 out of 10 on quality. Story is another 8.5 out of 10, alike Season 7, as it's so small. It has no depth, but it's really good for what it is. The characters are far better and more real than in Season 7, and they deserve the same as Once Upon a Time's first season got, 9 out of 10 points. Finally, the Theorize ability is about the same as Season 7 as well, at 8.5 out of 10 points, meaning Once Upon a Time in Wonderland gets an 8.5 out of 10 rating, meaning I enjoyed it 85% of the time, and it's barely given a B+. Overall, this show, based on the 5 criteria, not a seasonal average, but the 5 criteria as a whole, is given a 9.9 out of 10 rating, meaning I enjoyed the show 99% of the time, and it reached around 99% of its potential during its best. It's a long show, so that's saying a lot. Most shows rated this high by myself are far shorter, so you now know why I like this show as much as I do. It's the pinnacle of confusing sci-fi fantasy, aside from Lost, that is, and I'd heavily recommend it if you like confusing stories. Sometimes they lose themselves, which I do believe is a criticism some have, but that only leaves more room for the theories the showrunners have encouraged so much. Vote here in the top corner on my poll. How did you find Once Upon a Time? Until next time, whether it'll be a theory, review, or thick plot, I'm the Theorizer.